The deadline to buy your registered retirement savings plan contribution and claim it as a tax credit for the 2017 year is Thursday, but maybe some should be considering a tax-free savings account. Here to discuss the pros and cons of both is Brian Betts, debt counselor with Money Mentors. Nice to see you again, Brian.
Thank you, Shauna.
Let's start with RRSP contributions. Whether someone does it monthly or in one chunk this time of year, you always stress how important they are.
That is correct. So last month I talked about the need to budget for your annual expenses, be it, Christmas or vacations or car repairs or whatever, on a monthly basis. So save 1/12 of that amount every month. And so we are now entering the third month. So 2 months have gone by. So if you followed my advice, then you should have 2 months worth of savings for all of those categories. So if you haven't, then I'm going to nag you and say you either need to adjust the amount that you're going to save or adjust your budget so you're saving more. But time to make adjustments as we move forward.
For sure. But some wonder, why make RRSP contributions if we already have a pension we pay into, let's say, through work?
And if you have a pension at work, then that is great. But fewer and fewer and fewer people do have pensions at work. Now, when we say pension, we're talking about defined benefit pensions. So if you're a government employee, provincial employee, any type of city employee, usually you have those types. But for defined contribution where you have to contribute, then that's a different matter, and that's one thing I think that we should all be paying a lot of attention to.
Okay, now let's talk about the two, RRSP versus tax-free savings account, TFSA. There is quite a difference here.
Well, actually, there's not that much of a difference, really. I mean, you can use them basically in the same way. They're both savings instruments. You can use them for stocks, bonds, savings accounts, term deposits. The only major difference in them is that the RRSPs affect your taxes and the tax-free savings account doesn't affect your taxes. So I'm not going to talk really a lot about the differences between the two. I just want to say that, if you have the money to invest this year, as we're coming up to the deadline, I think that's great. You've done well. Great. You've got the money to invest. Now, I want you to think about how are you going to invest that money? What are the differences between the tax-free savings account and the RRSP, and which is better for you?
Okay, so then can the TFSA effectively be used to plan for retirement?
It can, but it takes a lot of discipline. And one of the reasons I'm going to talk about that I prefer the RRSPs is that the tax-free savings account is simply just too easy to access. Since it's been introduced, some of the recent numbers that I've been looking at is that almost half of the money that goes into a tax-free savings account gets pulled back out within the next couple of years. So the discipline to leave it alone is something that you really have to work on. Now, if you have maxed out your RRSP, then great, use your tax-free savings account. But I think for most people, that's not reasonable, and I suggest that an RRSP is the better vehicle to use. So number one, again, for that discipline, it's a lot harder to take it out of an RRSP because there's a tax component to it. Number two, if you're in a higher tax bracket now, then you're going to get a bigger tax refund that will offset what you have to pay later on. Again, remember, RRSP is a tax deferral program, not a tax avoidance program. You're still going to have to pay the shot at some point in time. And use that refund for something good. Don't squander it. Don't go to Hawaii or do something like that. Take that refund that you get. So let's say you invest $5,000. You get $1,500 back. Put that on your mortgage. Pay down your credit card debt or reinvest it back into your RRSP. I really like the fact that, okay, if I put $5,000 in, I get $1,500, I add that back in. Now I've got $6,500 working for me when I've only invested $5,000. So again, just rough numbers, but you get the general idea. And if you do have a group RRSP on a defined contribution plan, then you absolutely must take advantage of the free money that your employer will be giving you. If they're matching your RRSP contributions, you have to enroll in that because it's just money that you're leaving off the table.
Yeah, it makes sense. So Brian, if someone wants to contribute to both, what's the best strategy?
Just contribute. I mean, if they want to contribute to both, I would say then, again, max out your RRSP, and then do your tax-free savings account. And yeah, if you're a high-income earner, there are many people that are doing that. But I think, again, for most people, RRSPs first, tax-free savings account later.
Well said. I think a lot of people got great tips from you, especially this week, Brian.
Good.
Good. Thank you. That's Brian Betts. He is a debt counselor with Money Mentors.